Welcome to another installation of Yoga Therapist. Where am I now? And we have Dawn Cabry
Hi. Hello.
from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm going to
That's right.
give you a quick background. She is a school psychologist, obviously avid yogini, and now post graduating her yoga therapy, she took on a new role. And listen to this: the social emotional trauma counselor at the school district.
Yep.
That's a lot. That's a handful. And I know you're using your yoga therapy in that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So we were going to kind of go through this evolution of how I became a yoga teacher and in through the yoga therapy, as I mentioned. So I actually don't know how did you get into teaching yoga?
Well, so I guess my initial interest in yoga came. I started taking a Bikram yoga class many, many years ago, like maybe 15 years ago. And I liked it, but I kind of was interested in dabbling in some other things. And around, I guess it must have been 2017, I heard of a yoga teacher training class that was local. And I thought, that sounds like something I'm interested in. I'd like to expand my knowledge of yoga. And at that point in time, it was very much about asana. Um, it wasn't really until I got with YogaLife, even through that teacher training program, but it wasn't until I got into YogaLife training where I really I developed a much deeper understanding of what yoga is, that it's so much more than just asana. And actually, asana is a very small part.
So asana meaning yoga poses.
Yes, right.
Sometimes the very well trained people use certain Sanskrit words that some of you may know, but some may not. So you did that.
Started.
Did you teach much after the teacher's training
Um,
program?
a little bit. I actually worked for a gym for many, many years where I was teaching yoga as well as some other things. So, yeah. And I
Great.
did all kinds of teaching. I did some yoga flow, I did some restorative, some yin. So, a variety of things.
Hmm. And then how did yoga therapy come into your mind? A lot of people don't know about yoga therapy, especially
Yeah.
in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think basically, I again was kind of at a point where I wanted to find something that I enjoyed and really learn deeply about it. Um, and so, funny enough, my acupuncturist was a former student who went through the Yoga Life programming for his teacher training and recommended you have to talk to this Bob guy. So, so I did. I was able to set up an appointment with Bob, and I came out and checked it out and had some really good feelings about it, and it seemed like a good fit for me. But I would say kind of what drove me to it, probably in retrospect, was more just an interest in developing
Mm,
my own self.
right.
It was less for me about I think it was less for me about becoming a yoga therapist and more about like self development.
Mm. So maybe shed a little light on that because
Mm.
a school psychologist, you went through counseling training. You probably have to do all sorts of really cool like things, and they make you be the practice guinea pigs with each other and such, right? So you've
Yeah,
already done a lot of this in your life.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I think what I'm learning as I go along and as I went through the program through Yoga Life was just how interconnected all of these fields really are. When you take away the jargon, as you referred to before, really everybody's talking about the same kind of thing. They're just calling it different names.
Hmm.
So I just kind of knew, I don't know, I guess I had an innate sense that this was going to improve my personal and my professional life, even though it didn't appear to be directly related.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, obviously the counseling therapy side of yoga therapy is somewhat related, but you were angling it more. So what areas of your life were affected by it, by learning yoga more fully?
Wow. I would say personally, like just I've had a lot of life changes over the past 10 years. And I think I really was, even in going into my initial teacher training, looking for ways to support myself personally through some of what would be like difficult kinds of personal things. And I found a lot of skills that could help me through
Mm-hmm.
the various things. Um, I think I would say probably one of the biggest learnings that I've had is being aware of not getting too attached to things.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a good life lesson.
So how do you do that?
Yeah, good question. Lots, lots of practice and repetition, and just an awareness that it's not, it's something that you're always having to work at.
Okay. How about if you give us an example of something
Mhm.
minor where that at one point you were attached, which then leads to stress and trouble, right? And then you let go of a situation and then you can kind of go with it.
Oh, okay. Um, I would say maybe as it relates to my work, where there's not always a lot of control of an outcome. And so we work really, really hard. And there's this feeling of being invested in what happens at the end.
Mm.
And yet things don't always, actually often don't go the way that you expect.
Mm-hmm.
But just being less attached to that outcome has a softer feel when you are working so hard and giving
Right.
your best, and knowing that that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
Working hard and doing your best is it's enough.
Right. So that's not a message that's normally given to us. We're say work harder, work harder. So, and think about your situation. You're working with children or, you know, adolescents, and, you know, we care even more about them.
Mm-hmm.
So the wanting a child, you know, even if the child's a teenager, still they're a child to us. So we just want them to go to do well and be well, of course. So what would you say was your previous mindset that was more attached, therefore?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious, because then people
Yeah.
might get a sense that, like, when we do the yoga, we're actually examining how we view things. And that's what causes the stress, not the actual situation as much.
Yeah, for sure. Like belief
Yeah.
systems around things. So I need you to ask me to ask that question again, because I got lost in the idea of
Okay.
belief
So,
system.
like, so if you're going to let go and kind of go with the flow, you help a child, and then you try really hard, right? And now you're working on allowing their development to go in whatever zigzaggy directions it needs to go in. Maybe they need to get in trouble some more before they decide to have a wake up call.
Yeah,
You don't know, right?
yeah.
So previously, then, what I'm curious to make this comparison to show how far you traveled, what
Hmm.
would you have said you thought about before when you were attached?
Oh, I probably would have blamed myself, or maybe put blame on somebody else.
Uh,
Um, and I think I think the comparison then is that my view now is that that is that person's path, and I don't have, that's not my, it's not really my business.
right. Right. So that's a huge shift
Yeah.
from being codependent
Yeah.
where either somebody's at fault or somebody else is. So somebody is responsible. A different person is responsible for the other person's
Right.
choices and behaviors and feelings.
Right.
So when you take that off, and I didn't expect to kind of go here exactly, but that's what's fun about an interview like this, because it shows that each person is different, and that it kind of shows how this then affected your job, because that's part of your message today, that you're not presently being a yoga therapist per se, but it's infiltrated your work as a counselor.
Yeah. And I would say too, that even a lot of my work at this point is with adults, with the adults who are working with the children. Yeah. Through consultation. And so, it would be super easy for me in the past to get, develop maybe some of that codependency, or taking on the feelings of that teacher who is really distressed. It's with the idea of being less attached, it's easier for me to step back, and it's then also easier for me to hold space for people who need me to do that without becoming so entrenched in the situation.
Right.
So that's another significant way that I would say that it's helped me in my work.
Yeah, that's huge. And that makes you 100 times better. Probably. You're freer, right? To be creative.
I
with your
feel
comments.
better. I feel better, and it allows them to feel better, I think, too, because I'm not trying to make a change in the way that they're responding emotionally.
Yeah. I think a way of explaining that is if I'm one, so you're working with yoga teachers, or excuse me, school teachers who are having trouble being a school teacher.
Yes.
You're a support staff to the staff, not as much to the kids anymore. Okay.
Both children and staff.
Both. Okay. Both. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha. So, if I see that my problem is causing you distress as the the student or the teacher being counseled by you, I will slowly not want to tell you anything else.
Absolutely.
Because I'll feel like I'm a burden to you, right? I almost feel like I'm hurting you, because I'm thinking, like Miss Dawn has had like 10 people like this in the last 2 days, and now I'm going to make her upset because she can't, whatever. But you don't take it on, and all of a sudden you're there as if it's 9 a.m. on Monday morning, smiling, ready to go, and I'll just open up, and then I'll come to solutions and resolutions, most likely.
Right.
Yep. At least to a higher percentage.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then you go home probably feeling less stressed.
Yes.
Because you didn't put everything on your shoulders during the day, but nor did you put it on when you came home, right? You would be thinking about it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
It is wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't have to ask you any other personal examples, but I'm going to imagine that has just infiltrated all kinds of little things in your life, where traffic or, other kind of minor inconveniences, that I often say the minor inconveniences might be like one stress point, but you could have 50 of them. Standing in line, a crazy neighbor, parties across the street, like you could just have like all these different little things, in-laws, my parents, my sister, my this, right? And they're not huge problems, right? But if you get invested and codependent, blame and all this, your whole life can be a complaint.
It adds up.
It does. So then we don't feel free. So that's great. So did you have a bunch of other ones you were going to share? I don't know. I wanted to take one a little deeper to let people see how it unfolds.
I think that's probably the biggest one. I would say though, like the levels of being are something that, and so what I mean by that is like different levels of a human being, a different level of a human being's experience. The basis level being like just physical, all the way up through spiritual. And again, I would return to the idea that all of these ideas, whether they're from the field of psychology or yoga or wherever they're coming from, there is this underlying current of similarity. It's just that they're called different things. Like, so for example, in the world of education, we often refer to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is pretty reflective of various yoga concepts. And so I think that when I'm working with someone, I will often be thinking about, like, whether it's a child or an adult, what's the need here? What level of need is this?
Right.
It's not necessarily my responsibility to figure that out, but maybe leading them towards an idea of being able to figure that out.
Right. Right. So some of the different structures that yoga offers to help frame a human being and their experience have been helpful.
Yes, for sure.
Pretty much all of your fellow graduates come out with, like, they almost have internalized those, where they can just see the world in that kind of a way, like you're saying. They've realized how important it is. Yeah. Neat.
It really is applicable in all various settings.
Right. And then, of course, you know, without even, this is kind of like an assumption probably between us, but just your overall health.
Yeah.
Like, you're probably like balancing yourself, right?
Yeah.
Taking care of everything. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So, so let's see what I say. So obviously now we have this like yoga therapy. You go through this training. You learned a lot about yoga poses. You learned about breathing, like meditation. We're talking a lot about psychological stuff since that's how your career is. But you also learned all these practices along, you know, with everyone. Yeah. So do you use those at all with clients to help them regulate themselves along with the psychological side?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of my work with children is around, sometimes we even use yoga asana to do some various self-regulation types of exercises. I definitely use breathing with kids and relaxation exercises. Whenever I get a chance, I like to do the same thing with adult groups. In fact, one of the initiatives that am working on right now in my district, whenever we have a meeting, I always start out with a mindful moment. And so I'm sort of known for that now.
That's great. That's great. I have seen many different educators, you know, bring this into their schools, or I've heard about schools have, a few of our graduates have been the what do you call it? The school district's mindful person. You know, but the nice thing is that school districts have that position now. So.
Sorry, I just muted myself. I'm going to just do a quick relocate.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. So should I pause, or we'll just walk with you? So although you kind of set this up in that you're not really doing yoga therapy that much, right? Because of the way your job is set up. And we spoke beforehand that she had a lot of clients when we were in the training, when you do all these practical case studies. You are kind of using a lot of yoga therapy at your job, actually. Like if you're doing all these, if you're doing all these yoga practices with people, then what you're doing is you're giving people the power to self-regulate, to get in touch with themselves, have homework exercises they can really practice. Yeah, so that's really neat to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was really excited to be able to use it in my current position. And my hope is actually my long-term plan. I don't know if it'll work out this way. I'm not attached to it if it doesn't work out, but my long-term plan is, as I am moving towards retirement in the education system, I would be looking to develop probably some sort of yoga therapy practice. and seeing clients individually.
Uh-huh. Yeah. That would have been my last question for you. What are you going to do in the future?
Yeah.
So would you maintain your counselor's license so that you could do both, or would you?
So I don't have a license for counseling. I
Oh, I see.
am um, a school psychologist by trade, which does not require that level of
Oh,
licensure.
I see. Uh-huh.
Um, However, I had thought about maybe going back and getting a licensure so that I can use my yoga therapy in counseling.
Gotcha. Gotcha. You don't have to, but
Yeah.
somehow I think, aren't you kind of a number of years away from that?
Yes. I'm
Yeah.
within, I would say, between 6 and 10 years.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still, I mean, you're planning ahead. I've had, obviously, there's a certain segment which you're really not part of people who do yoga therapy when they're about to retire
Mm-hmm.
with the idea that they're going to do yoga therapy for 15 years in their retirement on a part-time basis, so to speak, and
Yes.
have a very rewarding, it gives you a kind of platform to work with people, and you can pick a specific population and really help them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I bet that in the next few years, you know, a position like that may just, like your position now is really kind of like the school district's yoga therapist. They just wouldn't name it that. Do
Yes.
you know what
That's
I'm
true.
saying?
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe just as a final question, because now I'm curious, how did you get so lucky? Because you're not the only person that like does, like you're not the only counselor there.
Yeah,
That sounds like a really good position, I would think.
it really is. And I do actually feel very lucky and
Mm.
blessed to have been able to morph into that. I guess it was sort of a freak outcome of um, need. It's needs based. I hate to say it because it sounds so trite, but COVID, has kind of thrown the world into a bit of a tailspin, and there's a higher level of need that's being recognized by all sorts of people, and so
Yeah.
one of the outcomes has been that there is funding for some new initiatives related to support for the education system as it relates to social and emotional needs. So there's money. That's always
Right.
the thing that drives it. But still, the fact that I was able to move into that position has been great. I
Yeah.
did actually use my yoga therapy certification as a selling point when I interviewed. They were very impressed.
Well, so I'm not going to take up all this time on your interview, but I can just go like this, because of the yoga therapy, I think I've seen two things happen, and I guess I just want to share it, just to you even. One is the credential that was impressive, probably, oh my gosh, she's not just took an 8-week course and teaches mindfulness meditation all of a sudden. She was in there for years,
Mm-hmm.
800 hours.
Yeah.
So, and then she's good on yoga. She's good with breathing. She's good with meditation. She learned about yoga psychology, da, da, da. But I think the second thing, and this is where I see all these people get promotions. And I wasn't thinking about this when I asked you the question, but when you become, what you said, detached or able to step back and see a situation, I just see people who can do that. Suddenly their creativity increases, their stress decreases. So they're kind of just more joyful or just more pleasant to
Mm-hmm.
be around, and they
Yeah.
immediately get promoted.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people have done our course, even our teachers training, when they started getting their stress in control and they figured themselves out. And we do some mentoring in that too. So I have a bet that whole thing you told us about detachment, it it makes you even capable of handling harder cases,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
you're given harder cases now, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
You're not just helping kids get to college, or write
Right.
an essay or motivate them to do what they need to do or help them with homework. Like you're now dealing with the trauma side of things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And that's really cool.
Yeah, it is really
So,
cool.
so, you know, it's wonderful to hear. I'm glad to hear that, she's still kind of newly married, so we're still happy about that.
Yes.
That's why I had to practice Cabry.
There you go. Yep, you got it.
Her previous maiden name was a little easier for me to
Yeah.
Well, Dawn, do you want to share any final thoughts? Because I think this is really valuable that things you shared, unexpected, you know, but unique to you, but then very similar to others in some ways.
I would say, I guess, one final thought besides all of the personal benefits, personal professional benefits that I shared, was also there definitely was a community and opportunities for networking that came out of the years of being with the people that was our cohort. And that is so beneficial. What I found so cool about the experience was just the fact that there are so many varied backgrounds that people bring to this program that I think is just amazing. And that's from everybody from the students to the teachers of the program. I just, some things that I've shared with other people who are interested in yoga therapy is just the wide variety of skill set that you know, YogaLife brings to the table, just with all your varied backgrounds. But then on top of that, the benefit of the cohort, the people that you're with, and all of the knowledge and skills that they bring. So
yeah, definitely.
That was a great aspect.
Yeah. And we try to bring that out in everybody. And just like you're sharing it today.
Yeah, for sure.
So thank you for sharing with us and being very personal, but explaining how yoga works. And, you know, we're really happy to see how everything's going.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you checked in. It's great to hear from you.
All right, Dawn, thanks very much.
Thank you.